What's going on, everyone? I'm going to talk to you today about the Brokers Expo. A couple good days in New York City, Tuesday, Wednesday, and my top observations about the expo. A lot of conversations were had, great panels, really good event overall. And then some things I want to talk about from our newsletter that went out yesterday, Thursday. So if you're not subscribed, do subscribe now. A couple key things that happened over the last couple of days that we put out in the newsletter, but I want to discuss them a little bit more deeply from the SBA, the topic of the SBA removing fees for manufacturers, the upfront fees, how that kind of is hypocritical from their comments earlier when they reinstated the fees in March, and then also our next networking event, which is September 29th, Monday Night Football, Jets, Dolphins. Tough season for both teams. Dolphins lost last night, close game, didn't embarrass themselves, but we're hosting a tailgate, so I'll talk a little bit more about that. First things first. So, Brokers Expo, New York City, the turnout was great and it was really well run, in my opinion. I might be biased, but the evening reception the day before, that was Tuesday night, Wednesday, most of the day for the conference. So let me share my screen. I'll just kind of go over a couple things. Basically, the talk of the event, at least in my opinion, and probably what I asked about most, because it's really at the forefront of what's happening in September. The Texas law, as most of you should know by now, sales-based financing. Sales-based financing, there was a new law that was passed in Texas earlier this year, went into effect September 1, and people had to adjust. So funders couldn't do MCAs or revenue-based financing, sales-based financing anymore, unless they were in compliance. And that's really difficult to do. So you had a lot of talk about what people were going to do leading up to September 1, what people started to announce towards the end of August, and rolling out term loans September 1st. And also then people just talking about, and I mentioned this in a video a week or two ago, that there's a lot of people just talking about, yeah, we're funding in Texas, whatever, just funding MCAs. Some people wouldn't say they were exactly funding term loans, that they did go through proper steps to operate a term loan product in the state. So a lot of that came out more and more, and that there were in one of the last panels of the day, the legal panel, that they talked about that there really aren't any workarounds. You have to comply. You cannot have an automated debit. It's not, necessarily just first positions and not just a first position with the UCC. It's within the business bank account. So even if you encumber or, have everything covered for the business, like you have rights to all the assets, is it specifically, the business bank account? All those things, again, or just to make sure we're clear, definitely talk to your attorney. But for the most part, that's the gist of it, is that right now, what's happening, you now have the people that have rolled out term loan products, the people that are in the process of doing so. Some people say they are still funding MCAs in Texas. And keep in mind, if they're just saying they're funding in Texas, be specific. Make sure that you ask them if you're a broker. And then there's, some people that have said, oh, they figure out a way to, essentially have the merchant submit a payment, not an ACH, an automatic debit ACH. And then there's others who are kind of working on it. They're working on figuring out if they can get it done in compliance with the new law, HB 700, to be able to operate a sales-based financing product, okay, to be able to sell it and be in full compliance with it. So, but when, again, it comes back to, if the companies with the biggest reputations, the most well-resourced, or have the capital to do so, have the legal access to get something done, if they are not getting in compliance, with the state, what does that tell everyone else, right? So the biggest names, the most well-resourced companies, they have access to the RBFC, all the lawyers who have been involved in litigating or lobbying, when this law was being pushed through the state legislature. If they aren't just simply getting in compliance with, sales-based financing transactions, then how is the average funder or the smaller funder claiming to do so? So there's a lot of things happening surrounding that. People are pushing term loans in Texas. It will spread to other uh, states, likely. Some have mentioned in the public that they are. Some kind of just, mentioned to me that they will be. And in fact, some are already doing it. So why not? If you have this product and it's going to be, X amount of time before you maybe see the results of it, if you can see if it's performing, then why not, right? It gives merchants another reason to go to you, another kind of product, another way to increase your recognition, and you're providing a value. And there's some interesting things about that. I shared in our newsletter, and let me just kind of run it down here. Should be able to see this. So this is the top of the screen, or when I just scrolled up. So the funding curve. Um, One, I'll talk about the Dolphins tailgate here in a second, but here at the top is first commercial credit published on their blog, on their website. And I read it. It's a very, very interesting article. If you know about what happened with Texas, had to do with the factoring industry really playing a part, and their association playing a part in pushing this bill through. And so now they're kind of seeing things, factoring companies are, and what MCAs are really all about. And now that they are those funders are creating term loans, what are now kind of the snowball effect of what's happening, kind of the innovation, the creativity of what can and will be happening in the future. And then here's the rest of the newsletter, just so you have an idea. If you're not already subscribed, I'm going to talk about the SBA loan here, fee here, issue in a second. And then we go down. This is our featured providers page where you have a list of providers that you can look up on our site and see if that's someone you want to work with. Different tools that we have on our website, different data points each week, business stats, business lending intel, we call it. Uh, the important companies that are publicly traded connected to fintech and business lending, the events that are going on in the near future, and so forth and so on. The next point about Brokers Expo, one of the observations is there's a lot of tech that's happening. Tech companies, people integrating tech into their broker company or their funding company. Obviously, AI is built into almost everything now. So it's one, I noticed quite a few, or maybe, yeah, a handful of brand new tech companies. Never heard of them. They're operating or they're addressing problems or bottlenecks into different steps of the workflow, for the funnel, if you will, from beginning to end, submission to funding. And others are just increasing their ability, their tools. Um, from the traditional CRMs, then they're expanding on it vertically into other aspects, whether it be, broker funder, lead provider, everyone in between has something going on to improve their automation, to increase their ability to process deals faster, to underwrite deals faster, and much, much more. There is a mixed bag of opinions on the economy. So rates, the Fed announced, I believe it was Tuesday or maybe it was Wednesday, that they're dropping a quarter point with possibly two other drops this year. And there's good parts of the economy and there's not so good, right? So the markets seem to be like at all-time high. They've adjusted to tariffs, even though a lot of tariffs have come off. If you know which tariffs are on right now, good for you. I don't necessarily know that by heart, but you have unemployment creeping up. You have inflation with CPI that went up like 0.2%. And I think it was up to 3.1, or the expectation was. GDP is, let's see here, I think it was 3.3 for the quarter, GDP was. So you have different aspects. The jobs numbers were revised, really dreadful. So there's different things going on. And inflation, it's still in different places in the economy, right? So whether it be beef products, farmers are getting hit right now. They're already talking about a bailout for farmers like they did back in 2018, 2019. Went and bought some other products the other day, and there were certainly a little bit more. So mixed bag right there. I think it is uncertain. Some of the panelists discussed like uncertainty. There is a lot of uncertainty going on, and it makes it difficult for things to happen for different types of companies, right? Planning ahead if you don't know what tariffs are on or off. Um, and now a lot of other things that I won't get into in this necessarily in this video. The panelists were informative. I sat in through, I believe, 2 to 3, and tips for brokers, it's always helpful. Always could use things that are going to help you at the top of funnel and closing deals. So they had a really mixed group in the first panel, and then I'm always interested in the legal panel. And so the experts there are top notch, talking about one of the top attorneys and lobbyists that are up on Capitol Hill every day, and just to make sure you understand, if you're part of the RBFC, you're getting monthly updates, federally and state, not just regarding business lending, but surrounding everything in politics. How some of it certainly connects to business lending, but how it may affect other things, even elections, midterms, so forth, was discussed, and that could play a role, right, at the federal level on how the economy moves, and also, you're talking about different states and state legislatures, and with the possibility of, when the incumbent president is in, they usually lose the midterms. There's a lot of discussion about that. So they didn't talk about the Epstein files, which, unless I missed it, I don't know. So, lastly here, the mechanical bull brought by Receivable. So, if you don't know who Receivable is, they're now rolling out a um, liquidity engine for revenue-based financing. They are down here in South Florida. They've come to our mixer. So if you're down here in South Florida, or just give them a call, but really good people. And it was a mechanical bull brought in right at the front of the expo, and it went off pretty well. So a lot of riders, a lot of good times, laughs, and everything else. So that was obviously one takeaway that I have to mention. Now let's get to the SBA topic that I want to talk about that was in the newsletter. And, I wrote about it a little bit brief here, but, and I said that right now the SBA announced, or yesterday, announced that it would waive most upfront fees for small manufacturers in the fiscal year 2026. Just in March, they reinstated fees for lenders and borrowers that the previous administration removed because they said that 7A, now this administration, this SBA said that the 7A program was at risk of not being self-sustainable without fees. All right, so let's just go back a little bit. All right, so during the pandemic and afterwards, once Biden got in, they removed fees. Um, let's see here if I can find it. So yeah, fee waivers applied during the fiscal year 2021. Removed fees for lenders and borrowers, right? So lenders, I believe, just math-wise, is the bigger chunk of the fees that are collected annually, right? And so, but then you have the borrower fees. Each borrower pays a fee on an SBA loan. 7A loans we're talking about specifically here, but the fee waiver will also cover 504 loans. So from 2021 on, there was a fee waiver. And so what happened with the new administration, all right, here's the press release, essentially. The waiver of $460 million in lender fees undermined the integrity of the program, small business, and taxpayers. Okay, so this is how politics works. So that's the headline. That just talks about lender fees, right? No mention, really, I don't know if there was a mention of borrower fees in there. Let's see here. As you go down, it's, kind of after promulgating lax underwriting standards of do what you do, improving other lenders, defaults and delinquencies roughly doubled. So it's not just that they remove fees. These other things that they claim increased defaults and delinquencies to doubling were part of the problem. But they do say from 2022 to 2024, the SBA projects that the Biden administration failed to collect over $460 million in upfront lender fees. As a result, the 7A program saw a negative cash flow of about $397 million in fiscal year 24, the first instance of negative cash flow in over a decade. So if we just kind of extrapolate for a second, hypothetically, because I don't know the math, I don't know the breakdown. This is saying lender fees specifically, not borrower fees, right? But let's just go over here because here's the notice that when you go into this is a download document that was from the March 2024, 2025 release, right? So it is in that article. There's a link there to click to it. And once you click, it goes to a page and then you can download this. So this is talks about both lender fees, right? And borrower fees, right? So borrowers, here we go. Okay. So SBA is revising certain fees payable to SBA by 7A lenders and borrowers. Okay, so it goes on to say, all right, so the lenders and borrowers, and it talks about the dates, right? So if it's, March 26th or before, you get fee relief, right? Meaning no fees. If it's March 27th, okay, if the R1 status and E-Tran is March 27th or later, you're subject to this fee notice. What is this fee notice? So the fee notice is this, all right, upfront, the guarantee fee, the upfront fee, right? So it talks about obviously the lender fee, right? That's what they mentioned in the headline, and then it goes into the upfront fee, and then it discloses the schedule. So, and you can read on from here. So essentially, it lays out the schedule that they reinstated the fees. Okay, so again, they are proclaiming that everything that the Biden era did was mismanagement of the core 7A landing program, excuse me, including the waiver of fees. So not just lender fees, it has to be both because what amount of borrower fees is there? If you can just say, again, this will be a hypothetical. Let's just say the borrower fees are, I don't know, 25% of all fees collected. Okay, so this is 460 million in upfront lender fees. Doesn't disclose borrower fees, so I would have to like guess. But if you collect, that's for 2 years. Okay, so if you split that, that's 230 of lender fees. So if we said, I don't know, 25% of 230, somewhere in the range of 50 to 60 million. So if 50 to 60 million a year you're collecting in borrower fees, total hypothetical guessing, just for example, in this video, if you're saying 50 to 60 million in borrower fees per year that you would have been collecting, okay, that now you're going to waive for manufacturers. So let me get to the point here. Is SBA now waives loan fees for small manufacturers in 2026. So just for one segment, right? Small manufacturers. Okay. So if this is for increasing investment by small manufacturers, getting them to take more capital to take these loans to increase, because this is all about reshoring manufacturing or improving manufacturing in the US, that they are waiving fees, waiving the loan fees for small manufacturers. So what that means is whatever amount this may be, right, that these loan fees turn out to be. So if we just said 50 to 60 million, let's just say 50 on the very low end of fees on all borrow fees per year. That could be very low, but let's just say if you want to go to 100 million, whatever it is, of borrower fees, 50 million, how much of that 50 million is represented from small manufacturers? So in those 3 years, 2022 to 2024, they probably have record of how many loans small manufacturers took out. And if they're taking, 1 to 3% in fees from that, you get a dollar amount. I don't know, whatever that is, 2 to 3 million, 5 million, 20 million. So whatever that may be. If we said 5 million, that's 10%, right? Of the fees per year. That's probably high, but let's just say it's 10% of the fees each year. So now you're saying you're willing to waive those fees so you're willing to waive that 10 million for this year. Well, why? Because you're trying to improve things. You're trying to incentivize small manufacturers to take loans, which is the same reason that the SBA did that before. You're just not doing it for all business types, right? You're doing it for the same reason, but you're only doing it for one business type. When you criticized the previous administration for all things basically done by the SBA, including the waiving of fees, not only just for lenders, but for borrowers, because you reinstated the borrower fees. If you didn't agree with that, right, or if you were thinking that, oh, the borrower fees aren't that big deal, it should be a good thing. We should not collect borrower fees, right? And give all borrowers incentive to take loans from the SBA. But no, you reinstated all the borrower fees. So now you're coming back March to September, 6 months later, and saying, oh, you know what, small manufacturers, we really want to incentivize you to take loans, so we're going to make that, no fee. So you see, that's how the sleight of hand on the very minimal side of, this announcement goes by because they post it here in the news release, they put it on LinkedIn. Very sleight of hand in the at minimum. At worst case, it's politics. Back in March, you had to give all this, press to the negativity of what the SBA did because it was falling out and da da da, and you're reinstating fees. And then 6 months later, like, oh, well, you know what? We're going to waive fees too. That was probably a good idea, but just for some business types, though. See how that works. If you're a small manufacturer, great. If you're these other business types, you're like, hey, well, I'm going to be paying, 2 grand on a 100K loan or 5 grand on a, 500K loan or whatever it may be, or more than that, 15 grand, something in that range, whatever it may be. Well, how is that fair to these other businesses? There's other businesses that could be incentivized by a fee waiver, when you think it's not just manufacturing. Um, so this should play into other sectors of small businesses, but it's not as of right now. So, and then lastly, as I mentioned, the Dolphins Jets tailgate. So we are hosting a tailgate Monday Night Football, the 29th. Come on out if you're down in South Florida. We're gonna have a good group of folks. Yes, Dolphins are having a tough time, but it's always fun. It's not really, the outcome of the game. It's the tailgate. It's enjoying the game, having fun, talking, just normal conversations with people that you work with, having a good time, getting out there a little bit on Monday night. If you've never been to a Monday night football game, you're definitely missing something. These two teams, as their seasons are what they are, they're still always fun to watch because they are such rivalries. If you don't know football, it's fine. We're just gonna have a good time, food, drinks, all you can eat and drink at the tailgate. Gates open 3 to 4 hours before the game, so we will be there most likely set up between 4:30 and 5. And come on down, no cost to you, just RSVP so I know who is going to the event. So that's it for this video. Appreciate you watching. If you have any questions, let me know. If you want to join me on a video, we do a lot of different video series, webinars, podcasts overall, and be happy to have you. So drop us an email, info@funderintel.com, and be happy to talk about it. All right, until the next video. I'll see you then.